What I want to talk about, I am Doug Updike. I'm from CDM Smith. We're an AEC firm headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. It's a great place. It's an amazing city, but we have a lot of fun. We're about 5,000 employees right now and growing, which is right the intention of what we all have. And I wanted to talk about how did we look at our sales data? We had a lot of data. This is my big idea. It's client sentiment and sales. And we had a lot of ideas. We had a lot of data. We've been collecting data for about 7 years now, right? So we had a lot of information there to look at. And we wanted to dig into the data and see what kind of stories we could glean out of this data. We always believe that having a lot of information, a lot of data, there's a story to tell in there but we have to dig into it. Specifically, the stories we were looking around was client sentiment and sales. We broke that down further down into a little bit more detail to get 2 topics out of it. So we looked at win rate, and we also looked at revenue capture, 2 important metrics that we wanted to look at to see how what the data would tell us. So the question we asked ourselves, and the question that we went back to time and time again, is does client sentiment impact our sales? And if it does, does it impact our sales in a way that's predictable and that we can also forecast so that we could help look at where we want to propose and what we want to think about. So the first thing we did was to characterize our clients. We broke them into 3 different categories, and I can't see this slide. We broke them into 3 different categories. One was pure promoters. So we looked at the entire data set. We looked at all of our clients that were pure promoters. Every response to the Net Promoter Score that we saw was a promoter. Pretty powerful group. The second categorization was mixed passives. And so even if one passive existed in that client data set, we put them into this mixed passive category. And then third, we looked at the mixed detractors. So if there was one detractor in our client data set, they went into this category. The interesting thing is we have what really stuck out to me is we had a client that we had 7 responses from this particular client. 6 were promoters and 1 was a detractor. And so the question I think John was talking yesterday about, do you grease the squeaky wheel? I think it's an important question that we ask ourselves and understand. After we had categorized these clients into these 3 different categories, we collated the data. We put it all into one place. Now we pull our client feedback data into Salesforce so we can run an opportunities report and we get a revenue along with that. It's important to see those things together. So that was really the second step, was to get all that data pulled into one location so that we could dig into the data geek stuff, right, to start to think about that. And then we looked at the data. We looked at the previous 12 months of data that we had available to us. Sample size, right around 350 opportunities is what we were looking at. So what did we see? Predictions. What are your predictions? What do you think? I think some of this stuff is intuitive. What do you think were some of the predictions? Think about pure promoters. What would you predict when you think about win rate, so number of proposals and number of opportunities, 1 versus divided by total number of opportunities? What would you guess?
90% wins.
Yeah, exactly. Would that be higher or lower than the passive group and the detractor group? Higher, absolutely. And that's what we came up with. That's what we identified, is that overall win rates were higher for our pure promoter clients. That's intuitive. It's nice to know. For people that like data, it's really comforting and nice to see that your intuition is borne out and proven by the data. It's a nice conversation to have with our executive leadership. What did surprise us a little bit was capture rates were higher for pure promoters. Does that seem counterintuitive? Really doesn't, right? but the degree to which that capture rate, so its capture rate is dollars won versus dollars pursued. When you think about that capture rate, comparing the pure promoters to the mixed detractors, there was greater than, right around 50% difference, right? So we're spending business development dollars to actually have a lower capture rate by about, in our case, it was right around 46%, so about half. So overall capture rates were higher for pure promoters. That's fairly intuitive as well. But the reality is the significant difference that we saw. We're still spending business development dollars. We're still putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into these folks, and the return on that capture rate is lower. So what did we see from this? When a single detractor was present in that category or in this data analysis, it was about overall, it was about a 30% delta overall as to why chase promoters. So we termed it the detractor double whammy. With detractors, you get, not only do you get a lower win rate, but you also get a lower capture rate. So a little bit intuitive, but it gets to the squeaky wheel. Do you grease that squeaky wheel? What are we going to do about this? What's next, right? And I've learned a lot from John this week. I hope everyone else has had an opportunity. This is my first time at this conference, and I've had an amazing time. But we're going to focus on increasing our Net Promoter Score because it's going to increase our revenue capture. If we stop chasing detractors, we can increase our revenue score. Now, to speak to what does that mean, we're looking at our project managers. They've had several discussions with you this week about empathy training. How do we identify the problem? We look at our comments from our clients, say, what do we need to fix? And if we fix that, we can drive up our Net Promoter Score. And as a result, end up with higher Net Promoter Score, and there we go. We're also going to use this information to couple it with our go, no-go process. So we have this operational data now that says, if you think about the operations side and what that's telling us, you can create a better informed go, no-go process, elevate your win rates and your capture rates. It's good for everyone. And then finally, we concluded that, yeah, we could probably forecast this with a fair degree of certainty. And what do you gain from better forecasting? Well, the outcomes is better backlog planning. If you have better backlog planning, that leads to better resource planning. And so that's the analysis that we did. And I think we've got a lot of work to do. This is a work in progress. We're still figuring this out. This analysis is very fresh, very new to us. So we're excited about it. That's what I had. I appreciate any questions you have. And as you're pulling that up, I guess I need to pull that up. I just want to say thank you all for the community. Ryan mentioned the other day that this is a community. This is my first time here, and I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate how open and honest and transparent and willing to help everyone is. It's a fantastic community to be a part of. So, questions for me?
While folks are working on those questions, Doug, I do have one for you. You shared how even the presence of one detractor reduced your revenue capture rate quite a bit. What did the presence of even one passive do on your win rates?
The presence of a passive, while it was lower, both of those, the capture rate and the win rate was lower when passives were present. Excuse me, it wasn't as significant as it was when it was a detractor. Right. It's like 3%, rather than there was a 3% delta between promoters' win rate and when passives were present. So not as significant. It was 10% with detractors.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions for Doug? Maybe people are just hungry. Here we go.
Commonalities between detractors. Yes, we did. We looked to identify if there was a theme between our detractors. What we saw where it was focused around, there were really two themes. One was responsiveness and one was helpfulness, which I think is interesting. That's part of the training and the development, the awareness rate elevation that we're working on with project managers and our client service leaders. So great question. How this informs your go-no. We're still working on that linkage. What I've done is I've had multiple conversations with our marketing director about how to link these two processes. What we have done is we do pull all of our client feedback data into Salesforce. So as they're looking at available opportunities for various clients, they can go back to Salesforce. They can see what we've done in the past. They can see what our client feedback has been for that. So it's integrating that data and having conversations with our marketing folks.
Did you analyze the change in the win capture rate over time when mixed detractors moved to mixed passives or pure promoters?
This was our first evaluation with that. That's definitely some feedback I'll take back, and we'll integrate that into our process. It's interesting. The question came up, I think it was this morning in the workshop I was in. Did you look at passive, or when was your increase in net promoter score due to passives moving from passive to promoter? That's where we are right now as a firm. To date, we've only had one detractor in 2022. So our focus is on moving passives to promoters. What is it that's just that kind of, that itch or that annoyance or that uncomfort that clients have that we need to address and we need to make sure that we work through. Yes. How's that? That's pure promoters. We've had a couple of conversations today about, if John talked about if you're delighted and you have a strong advocate for your firm, all of a sudden you can charge more for that. And I had an interesting conversation last week with a project manager. He'd gotten the feedback he got from the client was, I think we met expectations for everything except for one question. It was on quality, which piques my interest because I'm involved in quality in our organization. And they got together, they got the whole team together, they had a conversation around it, and then they called and talked with the client and said, hey, we need to know what we can do. How do we change to help you be more successful? How do we help you, or how do we accomplish a better result from this? And we're talking through this, what they did, what the actions they were taking, and the project manager at the end of the conversation said, oh, you know what, there was one thing that the client said that kind of stuck with me. And that comment from the client was, after I filled this survey out, the first question I answered was the one that I was upset with you about. And the reality is it just tainted how I looked at the rest of every other question in this. And so it's really important that we communicate that with the rest of our project managers and client service leaders, is that when there's that one single annoyance, it actually has an overall impact to the response that your clients provide.
Doug, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.